a man come in here, call you a boy, tell you to get up off your ass and rehearse it. You ain't had nothing to say except, yes, sir.
I can say yes, sir, to whoever I please. What you got to do with it? I know how to handle white folks. I've been handling them for 32 years. Now you going to tell me how to do it? Just because I say yes, sir, don't mean I'm spooked up by him. I know what I'm doing. Let me handle it my way.
Well, go and handle it then.
You know, you're always messing with somebody. Always agitate somebody with that old philosophy bullshit you be talking. You stay out of my way about what I do and say. I'm my own person. Just let me alone.
All right, Levy, you right. I apologize. Ain't none of my business you spooked up by the white man.
All right, see, that's the shit I'm talking about. Y'all back up and leave Levy alone.
Oh, come on, Levy. We was all just having fun. Cause you know, ain't said nothing about you. He ain't said about me. You just taking it all wrong.
Ain't meant nothing by it, Levy.
Levy got to be Levy. You don't need nobody messing with him about the white.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Good evening.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. We thank you for tuning in and hope you enjoy another exciting episode of our show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. 10 days left in 2020, and then we head on to 2021. But what you just heard was an excerpt from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. It's on Netflix right now. It's the last performance of the great Chadwick Boseman. And if you get a chance, make sure you go and check it out. But we're getting ready to get to the show right now. So it's the six-man Dean Geronimo. From NJ to NC, I'm in the studio with my right-hand man, Mark Lee. So, Mark, tell me what's good in your neck of the woods, my brother.
Well, you know, all kinds of good things in my neck of the woods. You had me a little confused there because I was sitting there going like, what the heck am I listening to as we get ready to have everything turned off? I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? Did I step into the middle of something? Did I not know what's happening here? What's going on here in the wonderful world of Straight Talk? So y'all had me a little confused there, but I see that it was Ma Rainey, and that is a great thing. I'm hearing great things about that production on Netflix. I need to get and check it out. You know, I was over there at Haytime. You asked what's going on, and we had the Black Santa Claus. So we had Black Santa Claus over at the Haytime both Saturday and Sunday. Steady flow of parents and their kids came in, including one dog. That's right, one dog came dressed up in his Christmas outfit and everything to take pictures as well. So they were there. You know, we are in the middle of a pandemic, so not as many people as has been in the past. So did not have as much of a crowd as usual. So they've actually wrapped it up for this year. But I think they're going to do a sleigh by later on or something along those lines. So there's still some opportunities for people to see Black Santa Claus and everything of that nature. So that's one of the things that is going on in town, and I've got to go back over there on Wednesday because, you know, even when the building is closed, you still got to have your crews come in, whether that's the exterminator, whether that's the plumber, whether that's the whoever, and we got to have somebody come in and do some standard maintenance, standard upkeep. So I will be there on Wednesday morning dealing with some standard upkeep, standard maintenance. But, you know, one thing I can tell you is that anytime that things happen, then folks get new toys. So we're actually getting some streaming equipment at the Hayside that's getting installed, and we're getting some video cameras, and they're also getting some new alarm systems and a lot of other new things. So, you know, things are getting upfitted and getting redesigned and getting into a better situation. So whenever we get out of this whole craziness, then there will be a even nicer, shinier new building that folks can check out and all of that. So that's one of the things that's going on. I know that, like you've probably been following what's going on in the news, and I see that we've got a bill that's coming due that's supposed to get us some money in our pockets. I know I can use the money in my pockets, but I've been told that that money may not show up till, you know, January, February, who knows, maybe March or April, because, you know, even though that passed, they still got to, like, get it through and get it into your pockets and all that. And I hear they're going to try to fast tracking. But Washington's idea of fast tracking and my idea of fast tracking may not be the same thing. Because my idea of fast tracking is pass the bill, call some people real quickly, and it's in my account by like Friday or Saturday. But I don't think that's Washington's idea of fast tracking. I think their idea of pass the bill, do lots of hemming and hawing, do lots of talking about we did this, we did that, we did this and that, and then you might get it in March or April. That's the Washington idea of fast tracking is. But maybe you've heard differently, and I'd like to hear what you've heard.
Yeah, the article that I had pulled up, it said that the second round of stimulus checks will be landed in the bank accounts of millions of Americans. It's a $900 billion economic relief package. It was agreed to actually on Sunday, yesterday. And instead of it being $1,200 per person, this time it's going to be $600 per person. And they said that stimulus checks could start reaching people's bank accounts as early as next week. However, one group of people will receive more money in the second round of stimulus checks than the first. And those are dependent children who will receive the same $600 checks as adults, up from the $500 checks that they received through the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the CARES Act, as for short. So I guess they said, well, we're going to give everybody $600 this time. Single people earning up to $75,000 will receive $600, while married couples earning up to $150,000 will receive $1,200, exactly half of the amount paid out earlier this year. The second round of checks had the same type of income phase-outs as in the CARES Act, with the stimulus checks reduced for earnings above $75,000 per single person or $150,000 per married couple. So the amount of payment individuals receive will be reduced by $5 for every $100 of income earned above those thresholds, and it will be phased out entirely for single people earning over $87,000 or married couples earning more than $174,000. So it's man, listen, it's still not enough. You know what I mean? Like,
I had a very interesting conversation. I had a very interesting conversation with a young lady that I've become friends with. That works at one of these Korean restaurants. She's actually, I believe, of Mexican descent, and she was like saying, "Let me get this straight." And this was almost her exact words. Let me get this straight. So, and she's a single young lady. She said, "So, as the first check I got was $1,200. The next check would be $600. So basically, the government is saying that I'm supposed to survive off of $1,800 in a whole year. Good luck with that." That was kind of her attitude. Right. Good luck with that.
I mean, to be honest, man, you're spending money. You spent money on a space force. You're gonna call them Guardians, I guess, Guardians of the Galaxy, like the Marvel comic or whatever. But now you have money for what are they defending? You know what I mean? It's not like Star Wars out there. I mean, it's no.
Well, supposedly they're defending this wall, because I also understand that there's a lot of this money if you go down there that they're going to spend to put 56 miles on that wall against Mexico. And like I was telling you, serious? Last time I checked, there's a passage in there where they're going to fund. I think it's 56 miles of Trump's wall that he wants and everything. And that's one of the things that they did say that they were going to fund. And the last time I checked, and now we talked about this on this show before in the past. I've not done a lot of construction work. I can't say that I've done any in my life, but I've done some work with some people that have done construction work and things of that nature. And the last time I checked, a lot of times, the folks that are at those construction sites, it's a lot of Latin American folks, a lot of, folks of Mexican descent, other descent. There might be some brothers and sisters, might be some white folks there, might be some other folks there. But I would say that the vast majority of the crews that I've seen look very brown and very Latin. So if you're building a wall in Texas, I put so many trap doors in that wall, it ain't funny. I'm going to hit instructions. I would be like, look, if you see that thing that looks like a phone, it's not really a phone. Just like tap it, it'll open the door. Got it?
Man, listen. If they could get a whole tunnel to get El Chapo out of prison, I'm quite sure they'll be able to make some things happen. So that wall is a waste of money, dog. It could go to, people in this country that are actually in need. I'm not going to say suffering, but at the same time, they are in need, and it would be wiser for our country to use funds in that way. That wall means nothing. I mean, to this day, you have individuals who get deported, and within 90 days, they're back in the country. So
like I said, that wall makes no sense to me whatsoever. I do not get the wall. I don't get that at all. But we also got like some real crazy folks that think that they can get away with drug stuff as well. Because I know you were talking about what's happening in North Carolina, but we had a major drug bust. I think they busted them for like cocaine, heroin, and everything else. And yes, it involved fraternities from Duke, UNC, and Appalachian State. And apparently some of these folks graduated like years ago, and they have now been busted. And they were part of like a big sting that they are still feeling the repercussions from. Because, they were college kids, and they thought that they could just get away with a little bit of any old thing. So they have now been caught and will have to pay the repercussions. So they have been definitely busted. And like I said, I know those were 3 universities that were included. There might have been others as well. But, yeah, it was a major drug bust. And like I said, I think there were some current students and a bunch of those that graduated within like the last 10 years or so. So definitely that's one of the things that's been going on here. And then, of course, we got folks that are getting stupid, popping off at each other with weapons and things of that nature. So, and then, of course, we got the vaccine rolling out, because apparently the folks are rolling out on the vaccine. But I did hear a scary stat, and I want to know what you think about this. Speaking of scary stats, I was watching the news yesterday, and I think he's come down. But I was watching our good friend Lippy Roy. Lippy's been on our show a couple of times, and she's now with MSNBC and NBC and a couple of those kind of networks and everything. And now she's appearing on our friend Tree's show. And what she said is that I think it was her that said that she heard that Mr. Fauci, the man with the plan, with the kind of like the real man with the plan in terms of the way we should deal with this and everything, he is like, I want to say 300,000 on the vaccine list. If the head medical man is 300,000 on the vaccine list, what the heck do you think we are? Like maybe 1 million? So this is the head man. And they said he was like, it might have been like 340,000 or something like that. Whatever it was, they did say he climbed up. But he hadn't climbed up that much. He was still like 300, 250,000. That means the common man like me and you, Mr. Dean Geronimo, are probably down there at the millions.
But you know what? You never know, though, because, even though that's a list, but I'm quite sure, there have been places where I've worked and before everybody else get their stuff, you're like, go ahead, get yours. And, so it's possible he already got his shot. And he's like, yo, just put me on the list. I don't care where you put me. You know what I mean? So now he's way down there on the list. Man, he got a shot. As soon as they broke the packaging out of that joint, he's like, yo, let me get that real quick. You know what I'm saying? This is a little bit, boom, got mine. All right, well, the rest of the world can do what it wants. I don't care where you put my name. You put my name at the back of the list. So, what we see and what happens in a lot of cases sometimes are different. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but it's possible that it could have taken place. It's very possible, because I'm quite sure I'm not going to sit there and do all this research and stuff, and then it gets there and I'm like, yeah, you're last. No, I'm not. I'm first. In fact, let me administer my own shot in my little muscle tissue. Boop. All right. This one was already open, so shoot, nah, it wouldn't be me waiting for that. Be like John Q up in that joint, like, hey, we about to tear this whole place up. If I don't get my shot, nobody's getting anything. I will flip all this stuff over. You start over again. So we got somebody at the door, man. And,
I heard there was somebody at the door. We didn't see
the doorbell rang a few minutes ago, so we're gonna get ready to find out who's at the door, and we're gonna take care of that right now.
All right.
Let's see if we can get them in. Welcome to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. You are now on the line. Tell us who you are and where you're calling from.
Hey, Dean and Mark. This is Jill Van Nostrand calling from sunny New Jersey.
Hey, what part of New Jersey? South, Central, or North?
North Jersey.
Okay, I'm at the bottom, and I'm in the southern end.
Awesome. I'm in a little town called Hewitt, New Jersey, and we're right next to the Orange County border with New York.
Welcome.
Thank you. So great to be here with you both.
Glad that you could call in, Jill. Definitely was looking forward to having a conversation with you and everything. Jill has been involved in a lot of things. She's involved in the financial world. She's involved in has been involved in the past in the musical world and all of that. But I'll let Jill tell a little bit about herself, because she's got a very rich history that has included a number of things. So definitely she's been involved in a lot of things, including had the opportunity to be involved in the major kind of like musical communities around New York and all of that. And then she got smart and said, hey, I think I want to go become a financial person and get out of this entertainment game. I wish I had been smart like that, but no, I had to be silly and still stay in the entertainment and media game. But no, she got smart and got into something that was more reasonable and all of that. But I'll let you learn more about this amazing lady and what she's got going on and everything.
Oh, Mark, thank you so much. It's so nice to be here with you both. Such a pleasure to hear all the really interesting conversation about these great topics that are going on today. And just in terms of where I come from, I was a freelance musician in New York for many years. I was very fortunate to have come back to New York in the early 90s. And as a French horn player, I had some success on Broadway, did a bunch of shows with that, and some of the really great orchestras that we have in New York. And I was so lucky to be in that beautiful community and being a musician in New York for about 20 years, and just loved and I certainly miss that part of my life very much. It was just a wonderful time. And since then, I have gone into finance, and I have become a financial advisor, and I certainly work with a lot of people who are in the arts, and all the things, Dean and Mark, that you have been talking about so far this evening, so important for all of our brothers and sisters in the music community and all the arts community in New York. And just certainly trying to help as many people as possible through this difficult time, difficult in many ways, in addition to not being able to have our performances in New York, and just wondering what's going to happen with all of that going forward, and trying to stay as positive as possible. And I know I talked to many people who are musicians and artists in the city, and they are working to stay very positive and trying to get through this and hopefully open back up this coming summer.
Yeah, I know that they've got to be hoping that they'll get a chance to open up. I know that I just recently heard that part of that package that was put in place was going to be going some specific money for live venues and for bars and clubs. So hopefully that money will come in place and that can help them open up sooner versus later. Because I know there had been talk that they might not be able to open until like the late summer or early fall.
Yep.
And hopefully some of this money will encourage folks to get that money and open up sooner, and maybe we can have it even going by full force by spring or summer versus what we had heard earlier, assuming that this package can give all of that relief that folks would like to have happen and everything. But I was just wondering, when you talk to your musician friends, what has their perception been as to how they're surviving? Because I know in our conversations you told me that you've been keeping in touch with a number of them, so I was wondering, what do they tell you about how they are surviving and what they're doing to stay afloat while they're trying to wait for the government to do what it will do and waiting for the cures to come around and everything along those lines so they can actually get back to some sense of normality?
Yes. Fortunately, most musicians have been able, at least the ones I've spoken to, have been able to get unemployment even if they are technically self-employed through this period. And it's been really, really difficult. It's hard to maintain your skills and maintain your place in the community and in the scene when there is no scene right now. And they're all just working really hard to be as flexible. And as you know, musicians are very resilient people. They're very hopeful people. They're very much hopeful people, and they think about the future. They are always looking to grow and learn. And many of them have taken on other sources of income throughout this period, and some of them have been working hard to improve their skills and even learn how to do some different things. So it's a combination of being supported as much as possible through our stimulus programs and different ways to support people who haven't been able to work throughout this period, and also with them just being really resilient and smart and very thoughtful people who are doing what they can to also help their own situation. So it's all about just trying to move forward as much as possible and maintain as positive an outlook as possible.
That makes a lot of sense and everything. When you've been talking to folks, what is well, a couple of questions that just popped into my head. Like I said, we definitely had a pleasure of talking a couple of things. Some of the things that you enjoyed about and what were things that you highlight in your musical career? And then the second part of that question is, what led you to go more into the financial aspect of life? And do you have any regrets about going to the financial aspect, or are you just glad to turn that leaf from the music community?
Oh, Mark, I did not hear the first part of the question, but I heard the second part. What was the first part again?
No problem. The first part was I was asking what were some of the highlights in your musical career when you had that musical career going, and so I wanted you to share some of those highlights.
Sure, thank you. I've had some really, really wonderful experiences being a musician in New York. Of course, musicians are just a wonderful community and high level of musicianship there. Some of the highlights, I would say, were playing with Thomas Buckner's group called Mutable Music, which is still a very thriving, lively new music, modern music ensemble in New York, and also being able to go all around the country with them. That was really wonderful. I absolutely love what they're doing at Mutable Music with supporting the composition of new music in New York, which, as we know, needs a lot of support because we have to have new music and we have to be growing and developing and evolving all the time. I'd say another great highlight in that vein also was with the SEM ensemble led by Peter Kotick in Brooklyn Heights, and that's just a wonderful group, also new music. And what Peter's been working to accomplish and his goals with the group over the past 30 or more years have just been tremendous, and with having different collaborations with like the Art Ensemble of Chicago. I remember working with Muhal Richard Abrams, very, very wonderful performance at some different art venues in and around New York, really wonderful. I'd say a couple of other highlights were playing with the Orpheus Ensemble with my old teacher, David Jolly, playing French horn with him. That was certainly tremendous. And, doing my shows, I certainly loved all the Broadway shows I did. Some of my favorites were Tommy and Wicked, Billy Elliot. They were certainly tremendous. And I would say I certainly miss, as you were saying, Mark, I certainly do miss the camaraderie of fellow musicians and being around like-minded people in that way, people who are artists and they're working together, playing together, making music and making art. That is certainly something that I do miss. I went into finance for a couple of reasons. I was interested in business. I was interested in financial topics basically for my whole life. It was something that had been part of different people in my family, jobs that they had had, careers that they'd had. And at one point, my father had Alzheimer's, and he and my mom were just having a really difficult time with their finances. And I was coming in and learning as much as I could and helping them as much as I could. And I just got really fired up about seeing other families also going through what my own family was going through. And I just got so involved in it and so passionate about it that I just felt like it was going to be the direction I was going to take the rest of my life in professionally. And I do still, of course, love the horn. I love playing the horn. I love playing with other people. But I do feel that this is the right place for me to be right now. And helping people with their finances is my passion in life. And it's just something that I'm really thankful to be doing, and very thankful to just be able to be in that position where I can spread some knowledge and spread a lot of education and help as many people as I can.
That makes a lot of sense. And one thing I was curious about, you talked about the finances and everything, and I know a lot of folks are very much concerned about their own finances with all that's going on in the world and everything. So I was just wondering, what is the number one misconception that you think people have about financial planning? Because I know a lot of times, it takes something like a pandemic or sometimes unemployment to knock people on their feet in order for them to realize how close they are to being in those poor statuses and things of that nature. I know that we're still having folks now that are now realizing that they were probably a half a check away from being in the poorhouse as opposed to the standard 2 checks away that we had always heard that folks were thinking that they were, but folks are finding out that it's more like a half a paycheck away from being in the poorhouse. So I was just wondering, what is some of the advice that you've been giving to people even in these difficult times?
I would say that's a great question. I think in terms of the short term, really getting a hold on the budget and how much is going out, how much is coming in, and how much is going out. It's got to even up, right? Or it's got to be in the positive. And a lot of times I've found throughout different talks I've given in this past year or seminars, things like that, is that people are not sure of what is going out in terms of their budget every month or every year. They're not sure where it's going. And I do spend a lot of time with clients just helping them get organized with their finances so that they can actually see what's going on. Because if you don't see what's happening, or if you're not aware of what's happening, you can't change it. And a lot of times when people see, oh, wow, this is what's going on here, maybe I could make some changes and improve the situation. And I'm always working to help my clients get to the point where they can start to save and they can start to grow their wealth and put some money to the side. That's the ultimate goal. And I think, Mark, in terms of misconceptions, a lot of people, some people out there in the entertainment world, in financial entertainment, I'll say, they put forth this idea, or to me, it's a failed strategy. But this idea of paying off all of our debts before we can start saving. And to me, that's just antithetical to the idea of saving. And we need to save. We all need to put more away. And we can work on the debt for sure. Everybody wants to pay off their debt. But if we lose time that we could be using to save as we're eliminating our debt and as we're improving our spending habits and growing as much as we can, we're going to be successful that way. But we need to start saving as soon as we can, even if it's a very small amount, start building in these great habits and build on them.
Yeah, because that was one of the things, and I know we've talked about this with of our past guests that have been health food advocates and things of that nature, is that too often we have folks, and I'm guilty of it, I know others that are regular callers and listeners are probably guilty of it as well, but we spend way too much time eating out, and we know that that's probably not helping with our economic finances, but I do find a lot of times entertainers do that, a lot of times folks that are having jobs that are causing them to be away from their kitchens and everything, oftentimes do it as well. So what is some of the advice that you give in that regard? And another thing that I know a lot of times people are oftentimes concerned about is student loans. And definitely we've got a number of kids that are now going into student loans and still continue to go into student loans, even though the whole way of education is changing with it being more hybrid now. But that doesn't stop the loans from coming. So I know those are probably got to be two areas that folks are very much concerned about. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about your thoughts on both getting away from the maybe eating out as often and definitely ways that we can deal with the student loans. Because, I mean, if you take the student loan out, then you've got to pay it back at some point.
Absolutely. Great points, Mark. Those, very well said. I'd say in terms of eating out to me represents something that we do have some control over. As you were saying, people who are out and about all day, it can be kind of difficult to always bring food or pack food with them. But whatever we decide we need to do or what we can do in terms of our budget, whatever we can eliminate from the budget that is something that we can control, that can be a great help, because there are things that are in our monthly budget, certain things that we can't really control, right? Like our rent or our mortgage, or sometimes we can control our gas, but maybe we have a car payment, things like that. So there are some things we can look at it this way: controllables and things that we cannot control, things that are going to be fixed no matter what happens, pretty much. So if we really focus on the things that we can affect and that we can change, like you were saying, deciding maybe to cut down on eating out. I mean, I know if I ate out less, and I along with a lot of people have cut back on that this summer, for a lot of reasons, because we haven't had a lot of restaurants open this summer in New Jersey and New York, but it is a lot of times healthier for us and also healthier for our bottom line as well, things of that nature. So it involves a lot of planning, a lot of thinking ahead and thinking about what is in my budget and what's important to me to keep, and what can I change so that I'm going to redeploy or reallocate that money and those funds and put that into something for my own protection, like having an emergency fund or having working on our retirement funds, which we know we all need, definitely. And then when it comes to student loans, I would say a couple of things are really important. Of course, as you're saying, Mark, we've gone virtual for our teaching, but student loans haven't changed. The cost of tuition, I haven't heard about any of it changing anyway in the past year, just because we're doing virtual teaching. But the student loans, I would say if a person can get that student loan monthly amount to the lowest possible amount, that's going to be the most beneficial for them in the long run. Because if we focus on getting that amount as low as possible, we just work it into the budget and we go on with our lives, and we focus on being great earners and enjoying our lives, accomplishing our goals, that's going to be much more beneficial, and we're going to be able to grow wealth and grow our assets while we're working on that debt. But what we don't want to do is focus all of our efforts on paying off that debt as soon as possible, to the detriment of everything else in our lives. Because when we're focusing on growing our debt, it's a positive focus. We're moving forward. And, the student loans are there for our education. We got our education. It's in a way, it's not always bad debt. We're able to earn our own livings, and we need to focus on getting that debt as small as possible in terms of a monthly payment, and then maybe even looking into getting into a forgiveness program, or looking at ways. I'm sorry, go ahead. You want to say something?
No, go ahead. I was interested in learning more about the forgiveness programs, because I think a lot of times folks don't think about those. Yep,
because they're certainly out there. People who work at a government agency or even certain nonprofits could qualify for these programs. And it's really important to get that monthly student loan payment as low as possible. I'm not a huge fan of having the student loan payment tied to our income based. I'm not a huge fan of that, because if we get a raise or if our business goes up, then we have to pay an increased amount on the student loans. So I'm not a huge fan of that. I would rather see my client's income go up and have the student loan amount, that payment stay the same. Another thing I'm not a huge fan of is turning a student loan into a home equity loan and bundling that into a mortgage, because then that debt is tied to the home, or it's tied to our mortgage, rather than being a student loan, which is a different kind of debt. So I say leave it a student loan, try to get into a forgiveness program, get that as low as possible, talk to a student loan counselor, talk to people who are experts in student loans, because oftentimes they can help a lot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Dean works with a corrections office and everything of that nature. He's there in the New Jersey area. But do you get a lot of advice, or do you wind up giving a lot of advice to folks that have gone into the system in any form? And is there any different advice that you give to them, as they have oftentimes been in a controlled environment where a lot of their finances have been pretty much controlled while they've been in the system and everything, but now that they're getting out in the public, then that changes for them. So I was wondering if you had any experience with dealing with those folks that have made a transition from being within the system to without the system, because the dean has been working as a corrections officer for many years now. As a matter of fact, he can tell you more about what he does and everything, but he's been involved in that situation for a number of years.
Great question. I have not worked with anyone who made that transition from being inside to being back outside. But when it comes to the finances, there are a couple of things that we know, right? That we need to have some kind of income stream, right? We need to have, and whatever that might be. There could be some, whatever we can do to get back on track as soon as possible with having income and working on a budget. I mean, working on a budget to me is one of the basics in life. It's something that we need to do on a regular basis. We need to do, especially if there's any kind of change. And when you're talking about making a transition like that, it's a really big change. And think about, what are our priorities? Where do we want our money to go? Our dollars are like votes. Where do we want to vote with our dollars, right? And when we come to a big transition like that, it's really important to maintain as much of a steady income as we can, and to improve that over time, and just work on that budget. I mean, working on the budget to me is like going to the gym and working out. I have to go to the gym. I need to exercise a little bit or run around the neighborhood, lift some weights, and I need to work on my budget. It's just different areas of life, same type of situation, like you were saying with the nutritionist before, Mark. I mean, it's all about healthy living. It's all about wellness. In this case, financial wellness, but it's still a very big part of wellness, because we know when we're not financially healthy, we have challenges in that area. We are very stressed out, and it can lead to not feeling good about things. And when we get a handle on it, I've seen it over and over again, where people go from feeling unsure to feeling confident about themselves and about the future. And it just makes a big difference in their lives. So, any kind of work with that, I would recommend. I think it's going to be a big help.
That makes a lot of sense and everything. Now, one of the other platforms that I do shows on is the International Broadcast Media, which is a streaming podcast. But one of the founders is always talking about financial wellness and financial fitness and some of the same things that you just mentioned. But one of his arguments is that he feels, and I think some of the other founders feel as well, that there's not enough of us learning these skill sets in the grade school level. And I was wondering your thoughts on this, as one that's been involved in this kind of financial space for a number of years, because he remembers going to schools, that being Nick Valvedo, and like learning some of these skills as a young man in the school system. But we're not seeing enough of that, in his opinion, on the grade school level. And I was just wondering, do you agree with that, and your thoughts about that? Is that something that we should get back to teaching? Because I remember a time when we had vocational training in our school system, whether that was learning auto mechanics, whether that was learning plumbing, whether that was learning a number of other things that we seem to have gotten away from. But as one in the financial space, I was wondering your thoughts on that.
I love that, Mark. That is just such a great point to bring up, because when I was in school, we did have some basic finance education, and I know that since my son has been in school, I think he had 1 hour of financial education, and it does seem to have gone down over time. I'm actually involved with a program called Money Academy for Kids, and it's a program that one of my colleagues and I do in libraries around our area, where we do educate young kids in grades 2 to 5 and help them learn all about money and about being entrepreneurs and the basics of finance. It's really exciting. And I think if we're thinking of the schools as being there to teach people to be successful adults, if that is important in terms of our public school system and even our private schools, then financial education, to me, has to be in there, because so many times people have failed, or they are not having the success that they would like to have in their lives because they're just not familiar. They just don't know what they need to do. They're not being taught what to do. They're not being taught how to organize their finances. They're not being taught how to even pay their bills or how to stay on a schedule or how to come up with a budget, and really thinking about how are we going to make our country better? How are we going to help people be more successful? I mean, as a public institution, the public schools, it seems to me that could be an important part of the mandate and a really important reason of why we can even keep evolving it and growing the schools, because to be a successful adult, to be a successful person, we need to have knowledge in many, many areas. I think anyone would agree with that. And leaving this out of the curriculum in any meaningful way, I think we're seeing the real negative results of that over the past 20 to 25 years. And believe me, I'm all for having this a part of the schools and having young people, especially in grade school, middle school, learning about these concepts and learning how to be successful with their money and manage their money in a way that's going to help them achieve their goals and dreams. Because that's what being a financial advisor is all about. It's like a dream manager. That's how I think of myself, helping people do things that they wouldn't be able to do on their own. And if we can start, the younger we can start with that, the better it is, I think.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the other thing that you had talked about, and I imagine it's probably also a deep concern for yours as well, is the fact that your I think you said it was your dad had Alzheimer's, and I know we've had other guests that have had to deal with kind of those kinds of situations and everything. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about your thoughts about dealing with an Alzheimer's patient or a parent and everything, because I do know a lot of times folks are not aware of what they're getting into when they deal with folks that have either Alzheimer's or dementia or some of these other ailments, because I know that I talked to a gentleman who lives in Oregon, and I think that he went through a lot of research around that kind of stuff as well. So I'd love to hear some of the things that you've learned from what you went through with your dad.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a really great topic and so important today, because what the number one wealth eroding event in this country for families and individuals, not just the people who are in long-term care, but their families, is long-term care. And we know that people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and this definitely happened with my dad, which was that over time, the expenses that are building up and growing as a person needs more care, as these diseases cause decline, it just grows and grows. It's a huge stress and strain on the families and the caregivers, and it's something that really just destroys families' financial bases. If a family has, if a person has long-term care insurance, that could be a huge, huge benefit. That's something to look into. Obviously, before we need it, that would be something to look into, definitely in the 50s or 60s. But barring that, if that's not an option, then making sure that a person has a will done, a person has a power of attorney and a healthcare proxy to help through these times, through these difficult situations, and having somebody who can help organize medical visits and help. If people are coming, like in my dad's case, some really kind people came into the home and helped with him at home. And just having someone who can help organize all of those things is a huge relief and benefit to the family because the caregivers need relief. And it's some of it's financial and some of it is emotional and spiritual. And that is something that is definitely really important. And also finding out about the benefits that people are entitled to. They're entitled to, if they can have Medicaid, help through Medicaid or different hospice organizations. That can be a huge help. I definitely have learned a lot about that and help people in those situations. And there's a lot of great information on the internet and a lot of great people out there who can help. And it's just a matter of looking for help and asking a lot of questions and making sure that the person who needs the care is getting all the assistance that they can get. And whether they get the care in the home or out of the home, that's a decision for them and for the family. And I think something that's really important is making sure that our families know what our wishes would be in that situation so that they can make the best decisions for us. So, having a will done and living will and making sure that all of our families know what we would want to have done in that situation is really, really important.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. What advice would you give to folks? I know I was talking to a friend of mine, and they've actually were saying how fortunate I am to still have both of my parents living and everything, and therefore when I'm in those financial strains, I'm able to reach out to them and things of that nature. Try not to do it too often, but still do it even at the ripe old age of the late 50s and everything. And definitely there are folks out there like Dean and others that have significant others, and it's a team effort when that's going on and everything. But what kind of advice as a financial planner do you give for those that don't have those kind of resources at their disposal? Because I know that when I talked to a good friend of mine who is, he's divorced and he's got kids and everything, but the kids are with their mother and everything. So a lot of times he's finding that he's having to find these very difficult financial situations out on his own. So I didn't know what kind of advice you give to folks that may not have the resources of family that I may have or that Dean may have with his wife and others. So I was just wondering what kind of advice you give for folks that are in the more difficult kind of situations with the finances, because I do know a number of folks that are in those kind of predicaments, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I say start with, in terms of looking for just finding out about knowledge. Find out what can be done. Where can we go? What benefits are we entitled to and can we get to improve the situation? In terms of health care, that's really, really important. If we can get health insurance through the exchanges, or if we have the opportunity to get it through Medicaid, that can be a huge benefit, because we need to maintain our health. More than anything, our health is our most important asset. I truly believe that, and I think that's where the beginning of financial wellness starts. And then just making sure that we are taking advantage of all the opportunities that we have with different programs, and also with the current situation in terms of making sure that we're getting our benefits from the federal and from the state governments, because whatever assistance and revenue and income that we can have through this time, it's going to be a big help. And also working on the budget, working on being as efficient as possible. Those are really important ideas for all of us to hammer home. And working together as a unit with our families, with our friends. I know people who have even moved in together, musicians, during this time, and they've changed. They've changed the way they approach their lives, and it's been necessary through this period of time, and very, very difficult and challenging period of time. But I do believe that we can get through it, and we will get through it.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. What advice would you give to folks in terms of budgeting? And I know a lot of times we oftentimes think about budgeting, and of course, there's always the things that you know that you can budget and that you have to budget. I mean, everybody knows that they're going to have to pay the rent, no matter what the rent is. I mean, in some cases you might have to reduce the lifestyle that you're living in. Like if you're living in the high-rise mansion and you can't afford it, then you might have to move to the lower class, well, not lower class, but to the lesser-priced apartment complex or something along those lines and everything, and definitely, but you're still going to have to possibly pay rent and or mortgage, and of course, just about every place you have to pay electricity. I know some places the water is included, but just about every place you have to pay electricity, and you definitely have to, if you have the car, maintain the car and all of that. But what are some of the items that when you're talking to people about their budgets, you try to encourage them to either reduce or to cut down? I imagine part of that is, unfortunately, even though you are a former musician, the entertainment budgets, because I know that that's something that I've had to cut down quite often and everything. But what are some of the other things that you try to encourage people to reduce as they are trying to set and improve their budgetary amounts?
I say when it comes to the budget, what we really need to find out what is important to us. We need to think about what do we want to keep no matter what. What are we going to keep, and what are we going to get rid of? I'd say once we figure that out, then we know what we can do. For example, as you were saying with our housing, where we live, maybe we can stay in the same area but move to a place that isn't, that's less expensive. When it comes to like you were saying, the utility bills and credit cards, stuff like that, I would say definitely contact all of those companies. If you're in distress, talk to them about it. All of these companies, or I'd say all the ones, I've heard about many companies that are working with people and helping them have lower payments. They might not forgive, but over time they're having people pay smaller amounts so that we can get through this time until we get back to normal and have normal working opportunities. So I would say definitely contact any company that you have any kind of financial dealings with. Negotiate. Everything is negotiable. I say just about everything is negotiable today, and it always has been. I would say talk to landlords, talk to anybody else who we have dealings with our finances, and renegotiate. It's a different world. It's a different situation, and they should be open to doing that. I would say ask for any kind of help that you can, and then use it to your advantage. In terms of cutting from the budget, I'd say anything that's non-essential. I mean, of course, we need internet connections. I mean, to me, that is something, for example, that I would not give up. But going out to eat, as you were saying, Mark, the entertainment budget, just temporarily kind of bringing those back a little bit so we can figure out how are we going to get through with what we have coming in, and hopefully not building up debt also on the side. But I think it's really important to be realistic about what we're spending and what is really important to us. And I'd say most people would find or are able to find things that they are happy to eliminate from the budget when they see everything that they're going to get by doing that, and how they're going to change their futures by doing that. So it's not easy. Believe me, I work with people on this every day. It's not easy. My own budget is a challenge, very challenging. So I think it's something that we just need to keep working on and figure out what are the non-essentials that we can eliminate, what are the things that we really want to keep, and focus on those, and focus on improving our financial situation and improving our financial health.
No, that makes a whole lot of sense. One of the things that I've been shocked at in terms of like just different careers and everything was I've actually got friends of mine that are in the real estate business, and quite surprisingly, they've been doing actually fairly well in terms of like both commercial real estate and in some cases even residential real estate, which actually surprised me since we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I was curious, is financial consulting doing well or not doing well in the middle of the pandemic? Because like I said, I was actually surprised when my friend who is a photographer for his wife's real estate company, as well as other real estate people, as well as a gentleman that I know that has got a Durham-based real estate company that he worked with, and somebody else that works in, like I said, the more commercial side. And in all the conversations, they've been like, nope, real estate's doing well. And then I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago, actually, at a fast food restaurant, who was a car dealership person, and he was telling me that he was actually doing well because in unlike some states where I know that some states closed down their dealerships, North Carolina did not do that. They actually had the dealerships still open, and he was saying that he's done quite well as well. So I was just wondering, are you finding that your career in terms of financial consulting is doing well, and are there other careers like those that I mentioned that are surprisingly doing better than folks might expect they would be doing?
Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely in New Jersey, real estate is doing really well. It's kind of booming right now because we're having a lot of people moving out of the city or other areas, and they're looking to make a move, definitely. And there are other areas that you were talking about are doing well also in New Jersey, very similar. It's just a matter of, believe me, on my part, being so extremely thankful to be privileged enough to be able to keep working from home and to be able to keep helping people throughout this time. Financial services, in terms of my part of it, working with people, working with individuals and business owners and families, people still need help with their finances. So if anything, I've seen an uptick in what we're doing at my firm and myself in terms of helping people, because it's all about getting people through this time and coming out on the other end and being successful. So in terms of busyness, I'd say I'm extremely busy and very, very thankful for that. And often just helping people and talking to them and giving them any positive advice that I can and making recommendations. So it's not always just about making someone a client, or it's helping someone and doing what I can to help them make their lives better. So I say doing great, very busy, and extremely thankful. And just being here for my clients is a privilege and an honor. And anything that I can do to help anyone, I'm happy to do it.
And what kind of clients do you look for in general? Because like I said, some people that may be listening that are there in New Jersey like Dean, as well as all up and down the East Coast and throughout the nation, as well as throughout the world. They may be listening and going like, I need to talk to Jill. I've got some ideas that I need to be dealing with and everything. So what do you look for in the sense of a client? And does the client have to be there in New Jersey, or can they be based anywhere in the world?
I can have clients anywhere in the United States, and I do have clients all over the country. I have a lot of clients, obviously, in New Jersey and New York, Connecticut, this area. I have a lot of clients in North Carolina. My mom and my brother live in North Carolina. And basically, in terms of a client, what I look for is just someone who wants to change their life. I don't have any minimums to work with anyone. I don't have any requirements in terms of what they earn or anything like that. What I'm really looking for is someone who is ready to take action and ready to implement new strategies and improve their lives and the lives of their families or their business. And to me, that's the most important thing. If someone's ready to go, they want help, I'm ready to go too.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, do you see any difference in the ways that people handle finances if, say, they're in the Southeast, like North Carolina, Virginia, or Georgia, versus the Northeast or versus the West Coast? Are there any regional differences since, like you said, you can't take clients all over the country and everything? And I was wondering, have you observed any regional differences? And if so, what are those regional differences?
That's a great question. I haven't observed so much of differences in terms of what people care about, because I think people pretty much care about the same things. They want to protect their families. They want to protect themselves. They want to improve their financial situations. They want to grow their wealth. They want to improve their businesses. But I'll tell you, the people in the Southeast are extremely friendly and and warm. And the people in the Northeast, as you would probably think, are they want to do things very, very quickly, as fast as possible. And I'd say on the West Coast, they're pretty laid back out there as well. And the Heartland, they're as solid as they come. So I definitely, Mark, noticed some differences in their demeanor and in their superior friendliness. And that's just wonderful to me. I love to talk to people all around the country, and I'm pretty good at dealing with time zone changes, so not so bad on that front, thank goodness. And just being able to help people and talk to them about their lives and help them achieve their goals. That's what I'm in this for. And any good that I can do, I'm just thankful to be able to do it.
That makes a lot of sense and everything. Now, do you ever regret not going back into the music field or being in the music field? And do you ever think that you want to get back into it and leave this lovely world of financing after we get done with this pandemic and you've solved everybody's financial problems? So do you ever miss the entertainment aspect of what you did for about 20 years or so?
Oh, Mark, I miss it so much sometimes. I miss playing in orchestras and bands with people, and I miss that camaraderie and that sense of just being so together and being close with other people. And, of course, I do miss it. Fortunately, I do still play in a couple of orchestras here in New Jersey, and so as soon as COVID is over, I hope that we get back to it. One of them is the Riverside Sinfonia in Lambertville, New Jersey, which is near and dear to my heart. And they're so kind as to keep letting me play there, even though I am in finance now. But I think I'm in finance to stay, and I do miss the music world, but I do have the memories, and I have a lot of great pictures too. So, that's where I am today.
Yeah, I'm sure you've got some of those great memories. If you would share with our audience some more details about some of those memories, like I said, you mentioned some of them, but I'm sure that we would love to hear some stories about some of the things that you were involved in some of those great shows, and I'm sure that the audience would love to hear you share some of those wonderful stories about some of your past performances.
Oh, I tell you, I say a couple of the highlights would be improvising with Muhal Richard Abrams at the New York Studio School. That was tremendous. He's a wonderful musician. I love improvisation. I love improvising, and doing any kind of group improvisation like that is just really tremendous. I also remember playing at Carnegie Hall with Orpheus and Mozart symphonies there, Beethoven, just really wonderful, and being in that beautiful space at Carnegie. It just can't be beat. It's just absolutely one of the most beautiful places to play in the whole world. And I would say those are a couple of my favorite highlights. And in terms of shows, I just miss Tommy. Tommy was my absolute favorite show I did, and playing with that band, with those wonderful singers and actors up on stage. Just a tremendous memory, going all the way back to the early 90s, 1992, I believe that was 1993, and just wonderful musical and camaraderie experiences in New York, and the best people in the world, or musicians in New York, and then going down to places like the Knitting Factory and Smalls after our performances were over to go hear some great jazz down there, and some new contemporary classical music, just really wonderful experiences. And those things you just never forget. They just stay with you forever.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, did you do any of the traveling with Tommy? And if so, were there any places that you enjoyed traveling to, or were you pretty much just in that New York, New Jersey area, or did you get to do any of the traveling shows?
I did some traveling. Not so much with the shows. Billy Elliot was the only one I did any traveling with. And I actually went to Durham with Billy Elliot about 10 years ago, or a little more than 10 years ago now, maybe more like 13 years ago. But I love Durham. It's a great town, and we had so much fun there. But I'd say in terms of traveling, I was very, very fortunate to be able to go all over Europe and spend a lot of time in the Czech Republic and Germany and the Netherlands, playing in different halls there, a little bit in Russia, and also going to Japan and the Far East. Those were some great experiences. I was fortunate enough to be playing in a brass quartet, which was part of a youth outreach program through Carnegie Hall. It was called Carnegie Kids. The program doesn't exist anymore, but we would play in Carnegie Hall, and then we went to Japan and would play over there for the kids over there. And we had a terrific show. It was a pirate-themed show with an actor, and she was just tremendous. And the kids over in Japan just loved, at the time, they absolutely loved anything with a pirate theme. They just went crazy over there. But I've been really, really fortunate to be able to travel and all over the United States. I went with Thomas Buckner and Mutable Music out to California and San Francisco many times and played out there to those wonderful audiences, and just being able to feel a real connection between the performers and the audience, and feel that electricity there in those performances, just so wonderful. And I do miss all of that very much. I miss the traveling. that is something that I really enjoy myself. I love getting on planes and going to see exciting new places and being able to play in different halls. I had the fortune to play in the orchestra hall in Munich one summer many years ago, and wonderful orchestral music, Pines of Rome, some different pieces, Beethoven, and just wonderful pieces, wonderful places to go.
Sounds like some amazing memories that you had there, and definitely some things that folks will be interested to hear your past recollections of all of those and everything. So hopefully as folks go back and listen to this, they'll hear those great memories and hear that smile in your voice, because I could even hear it way over here as I was listening to you, just reflecting on all of those great memories and everything along those lines. Coming back to the financial aspect of your life and everything, one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of people right now, and it actually even thinks back to our artist community, are thinking about alternative kinds of ways of financing. I was wondering what your thoughts are about this, because I've heard a lot of people that are now thinking about, getting involved in the stocks or getting involved in investment trading. And I've even heard some people that have been considering getting involved in cryptocurrencies and things of that nature. And some of these seem like they could be more dangerous than others. But I do know that a lot of folks are trying to figure out different ways to maintain their sanity as well as their finances, so they are looking at some different things that they are exploring. So what are your thoughts about folks getting involved in investment or stocks? Is that something that they should do research on before jumping into it? Because I have heard a number of folks that are, very much excited about wanting to get involved in the stock game or in the investment game, or wanting to get involved in cryptocurrencies, because that seems to be the latest thing that's out there. But I was just wondering some of your thoughts on that.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mark. This is such an important subject, and I also have seen a real surge in people asking me questions about this. Like, how can they get into it, or should they get into it? What is the probability of success? And I think what you were saying about doing your research and making sure that you are that you're educated on what you're going to start doing, and that you fully understand both how it's going to be done and what you need in terms of resources to get started, and what is the risk involved. When we talk about trading stocks and cryptocurrency, we need to really know what we're doing before we really start dipping more than a toe into that kind of that area, that field, because when people who are professional traders, they have a ton of education, they have a ton of experience, they learn beside people who've been doing this for their entire careers. So I do take it very seriously when people ask me about, should I start trading stocks, should I look into cryptocurrency, and I'd say in the case of cryptocurrency, it's here to stay, it's not going anywhere. But before we start really going into it, let's make sure we're really, really educated, and we spend time reading about it, learning about it, listening to people talk about it. What do the experts say? How do we get involved? Let's start small and we can build up. The same goes for trading stocks. I'm really in favor of saving. I like to help people build some guarantees into their portfolios. When we go into trading stocks, we have to take it very seriously, do our research, make sure that we are aware, we have our eyes open when we go into it. And there are other ways that we can also invest in ourselves, in our futures. We can start small businesses. We can do something in real estate. There are all different ways that people invest, right? So anytime we do that, the more we can arm ourselves with knowledge and talk to experts, ask questions, read what they write, listen to what they say, and lots of them, not just one person, but many, and read on a daily basis. I think education is key here, and making sure that we know what we're getting into before we take that leap.
Yeah, but I can definitely understand that. What advice would you give to people that might be thinking that they want to get into real estate? Because you just mentioned real estate, and I do hear a lot of folks that that's another thing that folks oftentimes think they want to get into, whether that's regular real estate or whether that's flipping properties or a number of other things. And sometimes folks think that it's a easy thing to get into, but then folks also sometimes find that it's not as easy as they think it is. So what advice would you give to folks that are thinking that they want to get into real estate, even if they're thinking about the possibility of buying a property that is in less than prime condition and doing some repairs on it and then trying to flip it, because that's basically what flipping is and everything. But what is some of the advice that you would give to folks that are thinking about going into those kind of endeavors?
So anything in regards to real estate, it's all about preparation and education and capitalization and having resources. When we're talking about purchasing properties that need work or properties that people are looking to flip, they're looking to turn them over quickly. We need education before we get into this. There's a lot in that process. There is a lot that we can't foresee when we get into a renovation or reconstruction, that kind of thing. We don't know what's going to go wrong. I mean, things could go very right. Either way, it's just all about, again, learning, get some books, read about it, take classes. There are a lot of great experts out there who can help. There are organizations to join for people who are, for example, if someone wants to get into commercial property, there are organizations to join where they have a lot of resources and can pass on a lot of knowledge. But again, I think it's just all about taking the time to really learn and talk to experts. Find out what they have done. Find out how they did it. What are the risks? I mean, definitely we want to find out what are the risks, what could happen. And I think it all comes back, though, to education and not just jumping into stuff blindly.
No, that makes a lot of sense. As I was saying, I was actually just talking to some friends of mine a couple of days ago. Actually, one of them I was talking to yesterday, now that I think about it. But they are actually doing a building. They're actually renovating the house that they're moving into. So they're not planning to flip it. They are moving into the house, but the house needed a lot of work. And so they are laying down floors. They are laying down a lot of other things. And I was actually teasing them because they have relatively young kids. One of the kids might be a little bit older than the other, so they might be like a preteen versus the other kids that are definitely younger. And I was asking them whether they were getting the kids involved in the construction. And I think the kid that is the oldest one, they've gotten the kid involved in the construction, and that kid actually did a little bit of damage. So they would think they were doing something with their bathroom and things of that nature. So then they had to call the other people in order to fix what the kid has damaged, because the kid was trying to be helpful, but messed up the kind of helpful vibe and everything. So they had to wind up calling somebody to help them out in that situation. So I remember Telly and Aya telling me that they were glad to have the kids involved in helping them, but they didn't need that kind of help going on. But they are definitely, I've seen pictures of the house, and it definitely looks like a work in progress. I think they're trying to have it done by the end of the year so they can move in like the 1st of 2021. But the pictures I've seen, they don't look like they're that close. But maybe I'm looking at the pictures wrong, and they're a lot closer than I actually think they are, because they were telling me that they plan to have it done, and I'm pretty much sure that they said by the 31st. It might have even been by Christmas time, but like all I know is when I look at the pictures, I'm going like, that looks like y'all still got a lot of work to do. So, like I said, maybe I'm not visualizing what they're visualizing, or maybe they're planning to do these 24-hour marathon sessions that are going to get it done a lot quicker than they expected to be done. But I know the pictures I saw, I wasn't quite seeing a 31st completion date, but I could be wrong.
Well, that's really exciting, and that's a great way to get some instant equity in a home purchase. It's wonderful. Putting that sweat equity into a home, and believe me, I've done it myself. And it's just a great way to purchase a home, and just to have that value just go up immediately.
Yep, and I've even seen people do that, and I guess you can do it to some degree, but I've seen people try to do that, adding some enhancements, even if they're, like I live in an apartment, and I've even seen people try to enhance apartments, but then I guess you've got to do clearance with the apartment complex. Because, you know, if you had too much enhancement, then they're just going to ask you to take it down, and they're going to give you back the standard building that they were used to when they rented it to you and everything. Now, if I'm sure you added like with their permission, I'm sure if you added an extra, let's say a dishwasher or something like that, and you left it here when you left, then they might go for that. But, you know, leaving some artwork, I think that artwork probably needs to leave with you as well, because I don't think that artwork is going to go anywhere but in the dumpster if they rent it out to the new person. So that's just my thought on artwork and everything that they may be adding. But what is your thoughts on what I just said? Do you think that if you're in an apartment, you probably need to leave take the artwork with you when you're leaving out, or use that as some other form of financing for your own projects?
Hey, if they do some beautiful art, I say if they're in an apartment, just do it on a canvas and take it with you when you go. And you know, get permission from the association or the landlord and see what they'll let someone do. But you know, when you're in an apartment, mobility is good. That way, you know, when you decide to go, you just take it with you and you're done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think more people probably need to do that. Just like you said, put it on a canvas and take the canvas with you, and that way you can leave the white walls or the brown walls or whatever color the walls are at your particular complex and everything. So that makes a lot of sense and all of that. What is one of the strangest financial requests that you have had somebody ask you? Because I'm sure that in every field you always get that one request that you sit there going like, I cannot believe that they asked me that question. So I'm wondering, what is one of the weirder financial requests that you have had asked to you?
It's going to be, I hope you think this is interesting. I thought it was an unusual request, and then it happened a second time. So a couple of years ago, someone asked me how they could set up a way for them to go into a cryogenic facility after they passed. And so we developed a plan through which they would be able to accomplish that. So I guess that's becoming more of not exactly a common thing, but it's becoming more common, because I actually had a second person ask me how to figure out so that they could get cryogenically frozen after they passed away. So I'd say that was my most unusual request, Mark. That was something I wasn't expecting at the time, but then it happened a second time, as I said. So maybe it's going to happen a third time.
Third time will be the charm, and you'll be sitting there going like, "Baby, this is a new trend. I can market this new trend, and I can just make this part of my financial planning packages and everything." Because Dean doesn't know this, but he really wants to know how he can get financially some planning money. We were talking about the Guardians earlier, which apparently is this great space force. So I'm thinking that there's going to be somebody that's going to come along, not Dean, I'm just teasing Dean right now, but I'm sure somebody's going to come along, and they're going to want to know how they can finance going either on a space trip or joining the Guardians. So I'm sure that you haven't had that yet, but I've expected that as we go further into the 21st century, that somebody, particularly maybe one of these young millennials or Gen Z people, is going to ask you how they can finance these trips to space, because last time I checked, none of them are cheap. In fact, they're very expensive.
Oh, they are very expensive, and I'm sure that is going to be happening, because as different programs are developing with being able to leave the atmosphere and then eventually being able to take commercial flights to the moon, or who even knows in the future. I won't be around anymore, but what people are going to be able to do in 100 years from now is going to be pretty amazing. So, yeah, I definitely am sure that is going to happen. That's going to be something that develops in the future as a trend, and all these new services or new things that are coming up in terms of travel and our future, and what we can do with our estate planning and our financial planning. It's pretty amazing what's going to be happening.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. What do you think will be some of the trends that folks can be looking for in terms of financial advice over, say, the next 5 to 10 years, 15 years, and if you're going to go out further into the 50 to 100 year marks. What do you see as some of the trends that we should be looking for in terms of financial planning? And then after you answer that question, then I'm curious to see what you see some of the trends will be musically and entertainment wise. But first, I want to know the trends financially.
Sure, financially, the trends that we're going to be seeing are ways to optimize our tax efficiency, ways to make, what it comes down to, Mark, is not really what we make. It's not how much we make, but how much we can keep. And I think going forward, we could all at least pretty much agree that going forward, taxes are going to be an increasing burden on our personal finances, and being able to mitigate them as much as possible is going to be really important going forward. And that's something that people are asking me about all the time, how to just optimize and make the taxes as efficient as possible. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I definitely think that that's going to be something that folks are going to be looking for. I'm actually hoping that one day soon we'll just abolish the income tax, and then that'll just solve that entire problem. But I don't know that that's going to happen in this lifetime, but I do know that there are folks that are pushing for us to eliminate these kind of like, that thing that we file for every April 15th and just kind of like getting rid of that whole concept and everything. But I think that it seems like it's too embedded into the funding of our government. So I don't know that it will ever actually happen. Maybe they'll decrease it, but do you think that we'll ever see a day when there will be no filing of your income taxes on April 15th or at all? Because like I said, it's gotten pushed back a couple of times because of the pandemic, and a couple of other times it's been pushed back for whatever reasons. But do you ever think that we will see a day where it's not as much of a regular routine?
That's a great point. I mean, people are coming up today with different ideas about how we could potentially structure. We can call them taxes. It could be a different approach to how we fund our government and how we fund different programs. It's everything, whatever we think is important as a people. And I don't think we'll ever stop contributing to that. Maybe we'll do it in a different way. Maybe it won't be structured the way it is structured today. We might be able to figure out how to do it more equitably for everybody, which would be great. And but I do think that as a country and as a people, that we do have certain things that are important to us and that we want for all of us. And if we want to maintain those programs and those services, those things that we know that we have to have, that we like to have, then we have to contribute to them in some way. So hopefully we'll be able to find a way that is both beneficial to the country and the running of the country, and also beneficial to all of us as individuals and what we want to do in our lives, and just maybe structure it differently than it is today. I think that's definitely a possibility. I mean, that's something very long term. It could be 50, 60 years down the road, or maybe more like 40, but you know what I'm saying. It's probably not going to happen tomorrow. So that's just something to definitely think about. And then in terms musically, in terms of what's going to happen when we open back up and we can have our theaters and our venues open again, hopefully we'll be able to have at least the cultural diversity that we had in our musical scene when COVID came upon us last winter and last early spring. And I would like to see even more people come into the music world and into the art world and just light it up with their wonderful creativity and their wonderful passion for what they do, and just come back stronger than ever, and just really grow musically and grow and evolve the community so that musicians and the role that musicians play in New York and in our country becomes even more important, because we need our artists. We need people who are creative thinkers and who are obsessed with beauty and obsessed with changing people's lives through art and making people's lives better through art. So that is my hope, Mark, that things will be even better than they were before.
Yeah, I definitely hope that hope does come true and everything. One of the things that I'm concerned about, and I don't know whether you've thought about this from both a financial standpoint and a musical standpoint, is that a lot of people are speculating that when we open up, that we're going to have to open up with new precautions put in place, whether that's everybody wearing masks, whether that's everybody being tested before they come in, whether that's even tests that have to be administered before you go in. I know I was watching a news special about a week or two ago, and they were showing like this monitoring equipment that they would have to have you passed on your body and everything to make sure that you had the vaccine and all of that before you can even go into a big coliseum to watch, say, an NFL or a college football game and all of that. That being said, we do know that, unfortunately, a lot of times the venues pass those costs on to the customer. So I'm wondering, is there, in your mind, as both a person that is in the musical field, still considers yourself definitely a musician, as well as a financial advisor, do you have a fear that we might see a bump in cost as well? Because a lot of people are already complaining about the cost as it was, and now you're going to add, say, an extra $2 or $3 based on whatever the equipment is that you need, meaning the venues.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I've thought about and that I've heard discussions about, that ticket prices could be increased, and it's something that I certainly hope doesn't happen. If something has to happen because of all the regulations and guidelines that we have to follow, my hope is that we will somehow be able to overcome that and still be able to, have our theater productions and have them be at least similar in cost to what they were before COVID started. That if they have to open at half capacity or something like that, that could be a really tall order and might be impossible. But, I mean, that is my hope, that we can somehow work around that. I mean, we don't want to make these live experiences out of reach, and we still want to connect with people and with audiences. And I think we have to be really creative about how we do that from now on, at least until we get through this in the next couple of years. So, I mean, it would be the hope that wouldn't happen, but of course it could happen. And depending on how we reopen, there's a very good chance of that.
Yeah, because I guess one of my other fears, and I've actually got friends in the virtual reality as well as the AI spaces and all of that, but I guess my other fear is that we might start creating more of those Michael Jackson kind of like concerts and things of that nature, meaning that you're not actually seeing the live person. And I, for one, enjoy the live experience and seeing the live musicians, seeing their body language, watching the chemistry between the musicians as well as the chemistry between the musicians and the audience. And I'm not knocking virtual spaces and computer spaces, but it doesn't have that same energy to me. But as we move further into the space age and into the 21st century, and as we're dealing with the consequences of the pandemic, I'm afraid that we might see more of these kind of hologram type shows and everything that are not the fully capturing the art of the artist. But that might just me and my fears. I was wondering, do you have similar kind of fears that we might see more of these technical kind of concerts that aren't the same as the true live performances?
Yep. I think we are. I think that's going to be a reality. I think we're going to be able to, once we really get going with, as you're saying, the holographic technology, probably be able to sit in our living rooms and experience something of a live performance. It's not the same as being there in person, definitely, but maybe it's somewhere in between, where we're, as compared to watching something that's been recorded. And versus something that's live, where we're there actually live. So I think it's something that is going to benefit people in a way, because people all over the world would be able to experience that version of a live performance, although they're not there in person. And it could have a very strong feeling of being there, but it's, you're not exactly there. But I think that could be a benefit in that many, many more people could be reached compared to today, where we have to be actually there in the geographical location to experience a live performance. So, I mean, that could be a benefit, and it's also hopefully we won't totally get rid of the live part, though, because I'm with you, Mark. I love being in a live, going to live performances, and just being there is something. That feeling is something that you really can't replicate, not yet anyway. And if we ever get to that point, then I'm all for it. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be a combination of the two. And some people are going to want to be at home and get somewhat of that in-person experience, and then other people are always going to want to go totally in person, I think.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and definitely agree with you on that. Coming back to the financial stuff and everything, do you think that will the Social Security, because I know that's been another thing that a lot of folks have been concerned about, do you think Social Security will still be around 10 to 15 years? We've been paying into the Social Security, or do you think that it's on the way out? So what is your feelings about the future of Social Security?
I think Social Security in one form or another is definitely going to be around. It would be politically untenable for anyone to do away with the Social Security with the program, because it is something that people have been contributing to their entire working lives, their entire adult lives, and to just get rid of it, it doesn't seem like it could happen. The program's probably going to change. The benefits are probably going to change. Maybe they would decrease over time. We'll have to see what happens with that, but I do believe it's going to be there in one form or another. It's just, what is that form going to be? And I think all of us who are anticipating receiving Social Security benefits need to really understand what role the Social Security benefit plays in our retirement planning, because Social Security was never meant to be a complete replacement of income. It was intended to be a replacement of up to about 40% of income. So, it was never meant to totally replace income. It's a bridge. It's something that closes up a gap. So it's always going to be, I believe it's always going to be there for a partial part of our income replacement, but it's not going to ever be enough to replace our working income. So we have to think about, how are we going to do that? How are we going to replace the rest of our income? How are we going to have the income streams or revenue streams or build up assets to be able to do that? So that it's a huge challenge today. It's something that we all need to address as much as we can, and just think smart about it and make plans, and not hide from it, but face it head on and really think about, what are we going to do to get from point A to point B? And depending on how much time we have, because time, when we have it, it's on our side, and when we don't have it, it's not on our side. And time is the most important thing when it comes to that kind of planning. And we can certainly bring Social Security income into the planning, but it can't be the whole picture.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the things I've heard people talk about, and I've actually got friends that have young children, like in that Gen Z category, probably even some of those other generations that are near there. So they're like between my nephew's ages, and they are 12 and 11 and everything, on up to like the early 20s and everything of that nature, and even some into their 30s. But they are oftentimes frustrated by those of us that are into the 50s, and even definitely those that are in our parents' generation, meaning that they're in their 70s and everything, because they're feeling like that a lot of the older folks are still working, and basically they're like, would y'all stop working so we can have our time in the work field and everything of that nature? So I was wondering, is that something that you're also dealing with as a financial advisor? Because you were talking about how Social Security was supposed to be 40% of our our planning into the retirement years, into those vacation years before going off into the sunset and all of that, hopefully making it to the Evelyn Gates and all of that kind of stuff. But in that bridge time, which is supposed to be all about travel and just kind of like having that, I call it, or some people may call it their second teenage years or whatever, that kind of freedom, a lot of people are working well into their 70s and 80s. I've got friends of mine that work at the testing company, the educational testing company that I work for, that are definitely in their 70s. Some might even be pushing in their 80s, and I don't think that they have any plans to stop, because they like to have that to exercise their brains and keep, and also have that social company that jobs provide and everything. So it seems that we're moving into this area where a lot of people are working well into their 70s and 80s and having no problems working into their 70s and 80s. But I was wondering how that's impacting you as a financial advisor, and are you hearing complaints from those young people about some folks working into what they feel are beyond the ages that they would like them to work.
That is such an interesting topic, and it is something that I've heard people in their 20s and 30s talk about, because people in their 60s and 70s are now working longer. My father-in-law has been working. He's 88. He's still working. He has his own business, but he's still working in his own business. There are a lot of people out there who, whether because they want to, they're still working. I mean, a lot of people love their work. It's a privilege to work. They enjoy working. They don't want to stop. They're doing great, and they want to keep going. So they are keeping going with their work. Sometimes people choose to keep working, but they back it down a little bit. They'll maybe be doing 60% of what they used to do in their later 60s and early 70s. And I think it is a challenge for younger people, because that wasn't the case up until like the last 15 or so years, 15, 20 years, right? And I really feel that we have to be creative. We have to make more opportunities. We can't just say, oh, these people are working longer. What are we going to do? We have to make the opportunities for ourselves. It's partially, at least partially, up to us to create our own futures. And I think we have to get really creative with that and embrace people who want to keep working, and also embrace younger people who are looking for advancement or ways to improve their careers. So it's got to come from both sides of that coin, of that story. And I think it's totally possible to make that work. And people are working for different reasons. And if there's, they want to keep working or they have to keep working, they should have the opportunity to keep working. Because, we're not, good work is something that we should applaud and appreciate, and be able to appreciate their experience and the level of depth that they bring to their work, because they have experience in the workforce for so many years. So I think we can all come together and come up with some great ideas and ways to move forward with that. And that's something that we've experienced in music as well, and it's something that we can definitely work through. I mean, that's a good problem to have, like people who want to work, and we can make that better, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that we can definitely make it better. Now, the other thing that I oftentimes hear people talk about when they think about financial planning and financial life in general is the fact of, we were talking about budgeting earlier, and when you first called and everything, and how the personal budgets, people are oftentimes amazed at the personal budgets and what we have to do in order to budget tighten and everything. But then we hear the, big government that always seems to come up with these big debts and these big things that they never seem to hardly ever balance their budget. Yep. So how do you actually, when you're talking to your clients, how do you get them to understand, for lack of a better term, this dichotomy that seems to go on? Because, like I said, I don't care whether it's state government. I would even argue in some cases your local government, whether that's in New Jersey, whether that's here in Durham, or whether that's in California, or definitely on the national level. And then we're telling folks to, tighten their belts and everything, make sure that they're doing everything right and all of that. But their people that are above them in terms of the government don't ever seem to do that. And even some of the businesses that they work for don't seem to do that as well. So I'm sure that comes up in your conversation with your clients. So how does it come up, and how do you give them to understand the dichotomy of what's going on? Because it seems to me that oftentimes happens is that, the bosses, whether that's your corporation that you're working for or definitely our government, don't always seem to do the same thing that they always tell us to do.
Yeah, that is a source of questions and interest a lot with my clients, definitely. And it's hard to compare our personal finances with government finances, because our personal finances are pretty simple. Even if we have a business and different things going on, investments, things like that, it's still fairly simple compared to what it takes to run a state or run the United States, for that matter. And what we're trying to accomplish in terms of our goals, and take a year like this year with our short-term goals of of relief from forced losing jobs and things like that, closing businesses, not being able to operate. That is something where the government is doing things that we will never have to do on a personal level. And we have to balance, if we ever can balance our national budget and balance a state budget, that's going to be over a long period of time and taking into account so many variables like COVID and now our unemployment and different things like that are just almost uncountable, almost innumerable. And when we think about our personal finances, it's really about building wealth. If we need to use debt, use it to our advantage. All debt is not bad. There is good debt and there is bad debt. And just keeping a balance so that we have a budget we're living within and we are able to save, we're able to grow our wealth, we're able to have different kinds of investments. We can take advantage of different opportunities. If something unexpected comes along, we're protected. When we're talking about our personal finances, versus the macroeconomic situation with the United States government and the state government, we're just on a completely different level there in terms of complexity. And at least we have a good chance of balancing our own budgets and making that work and being able to reach our goals financially and also our other goals in life, which are all connected. And that's pretty much what we focus on. But I agree with you. That's certainly a question that comes up.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a question that came up. I know that Dean, and I'm going to let Dean chime in. I'm sure he's got some questions that he might want to share as well. But Dean just wants you to balance the budget for the Baltimore Ravens. So he needs the Baltimore Ravens to make it into the playoffs because he's a diehard Baltimore Ravens fan. Right now, they're on the outside looking in. I think they're a game back, but we're hoping that they're going to go ahead and win so that Dean will be happy. Right, Dean?
We moved into the wild card spot, so we should be fine right now. We got
so y'all look good right now.
Yep, we're good right now. Two more games.
So they're good right now. They're good right now, so that's a good thing. I know that a good friend of mine was worried about the Jets because he wanted them to tank for Trevor because he wanted them to lose all of their games. And what did they do? They went ahead and won a game. So now he's a little upset because he's like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be tanking so we can get Trevor and get that great player. So now he's trying to figure out if they're going to lose that pick to Jacksonville and all of that. So that being said, just have a little sports talk there for a minute and everything. But Dean, what is your thoughts about all this financial and musical knowledge that you are garnering and all of that? You are a business person as well. You and your wife have businesses, so I'm sure that, and she's up there. Jill is in New Jersey, so this is your opportunity to ask a financial question that has been crossing your mind all day long.
I don't really have any financial questions. I just hope that they eliminate student loans, the debt that's owed on those, and that we don't have to file any taxes anymore. I'll be fine. As far as that, I'll be able to save some more money, and I'll be able to travel more. So, a lot of people want to save, and it sounds nice when some people say, oh, always save, but then they don't save anything. Usually they'll buy all kinds of stuff that have no significant value, or, they'll say, well, they say all of the right things, but then when you look, some people aren't. The words and the actions don't match up. And a lot of times with our own government, the words and the actions don't match up. Because sometimes you want to say, hey, look, okay, so where is this money actually going? Who is it going to? And how is it going to be used? And they say, oh, well, right now we're working on a stimulus plan. That's not what I asked you. We know the pandemic has shut down a lot of things. Also, with the ability of individuals to earn money in cases where businesses have folded, and unfortunately now they have no job. So what do? And it's a tough situation to be in, because if they never saved like they said they should have, you run into a problem, and you run into a problem faster than you would have had you put something away for emergent purposes. In this instance, this is very emergent because we don't know when it's leaving. Sure, there's a vaccine out now, but what's going to come down behind that? You know, how are some of these businesses going to be able to bounce back or even recover from the damage that's been done through no fault of their own? So, you know, it's kind of tricky, you know, and then different types of life insurance and, you know, they want you to get this policy, but then they don't tell you certain things happen after you pass away where you figure all of that money is going to your family. So it's kind of really, you know, you got to really pay attention to what will better serve you. And for those who don't have a clue of where to start, that's where the financial planners come into play and to guide you and to put you in a position where you will be all right, you know. So it's definitely a service that's needed and definitely a service that is very helpful because people claim to know about money, but then people don't know about money, if you understand that statement, you know. So yep. They'll tell you about, oh, yeah, I do this and I do this, and then next thing you know, later on, you hear him talking about something like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, dang, you just talked to me about an hour about all these other things that makes logical sense. But it's often easier for a person to give advice than for them to follow it themselves, too. So, you know, when you look at that, all right, make sure you put yourself in a position so that, you know, you're not looking at your family like, I don't know what we're going to do or I give up or anything like that. So you got to just be kind of careful.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. And actually, you brought up something interesting, Dean, and we alluded to it earlier. But what are you hearing, Jill, about student loan forgiveness and all of that? And is that going to come down the pike, like hopefully with us getting rid of taxes? Because I do agree that that's something that we should have done a long time ago. And there's a number of folks that unfortunately are stuck in debt well after they've graduated from school because of student loans and all of that, because a lot of times they do these kind of reconstructions of the amount, and sometimes those fade out and in a favor. So I know that I still have some money that I still owe, and I graduated some 30-plus years ago. So, actually, it's come to think of it, 84, 30-plus years ago, almost 40. And there's still some money out there that I still owe and everything, and I'm not alone in that category. There's some other folks that graduated many moons ago as well. So what are you hearing about those possibilities?
Well, it's something that, as you both know, is being discussed a lot. And I think in terms of whatever happens with the decision from the federal government, it's very important for people to leave their student loans as student loans. Do not change them into something else by either refinancing them into something connected to a home mortgage, something like that, or a personal loan. I've heard of people refinancing into a personal loan. So we want to keep them as student loans, and so that if something does happen in terms of the relief for student loans, then they're going to be able to help with that. If we change it into something else, then we're done. It's this new kind of loan forever. So I say that would be the most important thing to do. And hopefully down the road, I mean, if we can have some relief with that and have some changes in that system, I think it would be really beneficial to our entire country, because so many people around the country are suffering with their student loans. They're paying as much for their student loans as they are for their home mortgage, or for their rent on a monthly basis, which is just shouldn't be that way. So, you know, if anyone is in that situation, they should reach out to people who can potentially help them. There are some great people out there helping people into better situations with their student loans. I also still have a student loan left, still working on that. And we just want to get that down to a manageable amount on a monthly basis, and hopefully something good will happen on the federal level. And we'll have to see what happens with that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the other things that we kind of alluded to when I gave that little sports break and everything was I'm oftentimes amazed by the fact that too often we talked about the entertainers, but also too often our athletes don't necessarily have like a plan of their financial future, even though they get these big time contracts and all of that kind of stuff, but they don't necessarily have a business plan, and they also don't necessarily have a financial plan. So I was wondering, in your own career, if you've ever had to deal with any of these entertainers, and if so, what kind of advice do you give them? Because I oftentimes am amazed at the ones that might go to work for like the Jets or the Yankees in baseball or some of these other things and have million, if not $1 million contracts, or maybe not billion, but definitely $1 million contracts, and they're sitting there and, you know, they're letting their parents, their cousins, and everybody else tell them what to buy, what business to go into without having any sort of plan involved in that. So I was just wondering your thoughts on that and whether you've actually had to deal with those athletic types that may not have that financial backing and the financial plans in place.
I do have clients who are athletes and in entertainment at a very high level, and it's really important for them, as you were saying, Mark, to have professional guidance. It's of course we need our families around us. That our families are definitely our support system, and they should be involved if that's what the performer and the entertainer wants, the athlete wants. They should be involved in helping with decisions. But we definitely need professionals to come in who can develop a business plan, who can develop a personal and a personal plan and have the two aligned. I think it's really important in that situation, especially if the length of the career is uncertain, to do as much as possible to build strength and grow their wealth quickly, and to do that with the same principles that I talk about all my clients with in terms of their finances. It's not what we make, it's what we keep. How can we keep more? How can we make our futures better by keeping more today? And if we're in a situation where we're thinking we might have a 10-year career or maybe a 15-year career, I mean, maybe we could have a much longer career than that, but it's not set in stone. And I think it's smart to focus on building wealth quickly. And again, no matter what we make, everybody needs a budget. Stick to that budget. Make sure that savings is built into the budget. Make it real, make it a habit, and focus on that and proceed in that direction.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I definitely can relate to that. I've actually got, I've known for years, more as an acquaintance than as a true friend, but we went to school together, Doc Rivers and everything, who's now the coach of the 76ers. But I remember even way back when he was playing for Atlanta, he got involved in a number of business ventures that actually was helping him create the kind of wealth that he is still able to maintain. So even though he's had these kind of contracts, whether it was as a player or as a coach, as he is now, but definitely he's always had outside business ventures, and most of them that I've been able to see from the outside looking in looked like they were business ventures that made sense. Like, you know, sometimes the guy can get you involved in a business that doesn't make any sense, but these look like business ventures that actually made sense, not necessarily like, you know, the neighborhood lot that wasn't going to make any money because it's in the wrong neighborhood. So it looks like he was actually doing some research into the businesses that he decided to get involved in. And I think that that's what more and more folks need to do. I get the impression, and I know him not at all, but I get the impression that that's kind of the attitude that LeBron James has, whether it's with his school or whether it's with some of his business ventures, but it seems like they are actually engaged in the study of what they are doing as business person and not just as entertainers. So they definitely see themselves as entertainers and athletes, because a lot of times there's a fine line between an athlete and an entertainer and that kind of sport and everything. But definitely I think that they've done great research in the kind of businesses that they get involved in. And I wish that more of our up-and-coming musicians and our up-and-comer athletes and sports figures would do the same, because I have heard of a number of cases where you're sitting there going like, what were you thinking about when you got into that business? And did you not at least consult with your financial planner? Did you not at least call Jill?
Yep. Definitely. It's so important. It's so important, really. It's got to be good guidance, trustworthy guidance, professionals along with the athlete or the entertainer and their support system. And everybody works together, you get a great result.
Speaking of which, if folks are listening, they've been listening now for a while, and we're getting ready to wrap up and everything. And by the way, Isabel, I was hoping to have her call in, and she's done some work in entertainment as well, but I know that she was at checking out a Christmas show, so she probably still got caught up in that show, so I'll have to connect y'all to at some point and maybe have y'all on a upcoming episode in the near future and all of that. And I was also hoping that Santa Claus was going to call, because he told me he was going to call when I saw him yesterday, but he probably got caught up wrapping toys and getting everything lined up, so maybe he'll call us after the fact on the day after Christmas or a couple of days after Christmas next week. So those were two of the folks that I was also hoping to join us today, but you have been a great guest and everything. But that being said, how can folks reach you if they're interested in getting your services and all of that? So is there a email or a contact or website that folks can learn about how to reach Jill?
Thank you, Mark. It's been a real pleasure to be here and speak with you both. I would just say give me a call. I'm at 201-921-4718. That's the easiest way to reach me. I have email, of course, but my last name's really long, so I won't say it right now. But it's anyone has any questions, feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to help.
Sounds great, and I'm sure folks will be listening. They might be blowing up that phone and seeing about getting some advice from you and all of that. One of the things that I try to do on just about all of the shows, whether it's this one or whether it's one of the streaming shows that I do, is I always try to give my guests an opportunity to share their words of encouragement, their words of wisdom, their words of positivity that they would like to share with the world. So as we wrap up in the last 4 minutes or so, if you've got any words of encouragement or words of positivity that you would like to share, I'm sure folks would love to hear that.
I'd say just very simply, we can do this, everybody. We can work together. We're going to make it through this. We're going to just succeed and grow and evolve, and let's just work together. Let's educate and let's elevate.
Definitely some great words of encouragement. I'm sure a lot of folks can definitely relate to that. We definitely need to be trying to elevate each other on a regular basis and all of that. Oh, you did mention earlier that your place that you play at might have a concert sometime in 2021. So where would that be at if folks wanted to see you perform? So I forgot to get to that part as well. So I remember you mentioned a place in New Jersey that they still have you on the roster. So if they want to see you perform, will that be in the spring or would that be in the summer, and what is the name of that venue?
I would say look out for a summer concert in Tinicum Park, right across the Delaware River from Frenchtown, New Jersey. It's the Riverside Symphonia. It's a beautiful orchestra. We have a great concert every summer outdoor in the park, set up a beautiful bandstand and have fireworks. And that's probably the first possible time that we will be able to play again. And then hopefully next fall, next winter, we'll be able to get our season back to normal.
Sounds great, and I will have to try to make a trip up that way. And Dean's even closer, so he'll have to go over there and bring the wife and bring the family, the grands, and everything, and check out a concert in the park once we're back to normal. What do you think, Dean? You think you'll head over that way and check out one of your New Jersey folks are doing a great event? And by the way, I keep teasing Dean because I'm doing more jobs of booking New Jersey people than Dean is doing, and Dean's actually in New Jersey, so he's got to do a better job.
That's great.
But what do you think, Dean? You going to go check out the concert and everything along those lines? Because definitely it sounds like it could be an amazing concert, and hopefully everything will be back to normal in the springtime or definitely in the summertime. So if everything is done and we're back into some semblance of normality, you think you'll grab the family and go hear some good old-fashioned classical music?
But we'll see what happens.
Come on, Dean. Let me know. Let me know. I'll meet up with you. We'll have some lemonade and have some great outdoor activities and have a good concert.
That'll work.
Sounds like it could be a great concert, so we're just going to have that encouragement going on and all of that. So as I said, we got about a minute to go, and we're getting ready to wrap everything up. Dean, you want to tell folks where they can hear this replay at and where they can also get our other shows and some of the other shows that we've got on this tremendous network that we have put together here on Blog Talk Radio. So you want to share with folks a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Why not? You know what I mean? We can get all of that. Uh-oh. I hear something in the background. I don't know if that's on my end or on another end, but we thank you first of all for joining us tonight, giving us some good information and helping us along the way. Any help that we get is greatly appreciated. And hopefully our listeners have been taking some kind of notes as well so that they can, if they do need to reach out to you, they give you a call and get some advice to get them onto the right track that they need to be on, I should say. So, ladies
thank
and
you.
gentlemen,
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and thank you for taking that time, to tell us a little bit about yourself and all of the things that you do. It's greatly appreciated, as Mark has said, and I'll say it again, but thank you. Okay?
My pleasure.
So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, this Straight Talk with Dean and Mark, Monday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you catch the replays tomorrow and Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. on the Skyhawk Radio Network. And if you missed that, then we do have replays, and we have a whole bunch of them. And it's trying to find that list because my brain just got a complete wipe, but it's on Radio Public, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, TuneIn, Stitcher, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Podcast Addict, Castbox, Podfollow, Deezer, JSaven, and right here on Blog Talk Radio, we are part of the Level Podcast Network, where you can find also the shows The Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause, The Chef Gang Radio Show, Funk from the Front Seat, Funk Music with Zach, Learning Unwrapped, Let's K-12 Better, Marketing with Russ, #Russ Selfie, Mona Shakes and the Minority Reports, Mullings, Music and Memories with Mark Lee, The Online Dinner Party with Mark Lee, The Reinvention Road Trip, She's on Call, The Just Podcast, The Mark Lee Show, The Spin It Social Hour, Virginia Interfaith Live, and WNC Original Music. Last but not least, us right here, Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. Like I always say, when you walk outside your front door, it's showtime in the world of your stage. Just make sure that people are not watching the rehearsal. With that being said, it's Six-Man Dean Geronimo. Have an outstanding week. We see y'all for the last time in 2020 in 7 days.
And hopefully 2021 will be a much better year than 2020 was, because 2020 was rocky. We know that 2021 will at least start off rocky, but hopefully it will continue to improve and be a better year than 2020 was, because 2020 was a wild one. That's all I got to say. It was definitely a wild one, and we need to have some improvement in 2021 and beyond. So we're going to have some new things coming into place in 2021, like a new administration and some new changes on a lot of different levels. But one thing that will stay consistent, where we will continue to bring you some great guests. Still lining up the guests for that last show on the 28th, but I will have some more amazing folks. And who knows, maybe Jill will call back in again and have some great comments as well. But we'll definitely have some other guests as well. But definitely it should be an amazing show as we wrap up the year on 12/28 and get ready to slide on into 12/21. So 2021 is coming our way. 2021 is going to be coming up in, what is that, 11 days from now?
No, 11 days, bro. The day's the 21st. So 10 more days.
Right, 10 days from now.
That's right. And it's over.
10 days left to 2020 and 11 days to 2021.
Exactly. That's it. So y'all keep it tight, keep it right. We see y'all next week.
Sounds great. We will catch you later.